The day my son died was the darkest in my life. The hospital room felt cold, the machines silent, and the weight of grief was suffocating. My daughter-in-law sat across from me, tears streaming down her face, holding on to memories I couldn't touch. The funeral had passed, condolences were exchanged, and yet a quiet tension lingered between us. Days later, I received a stack of legal documents I wasn't expecting. My son had left me a house in the suburbs, 2 cars, and a modest savings account. It was overwhelming, and a part of me felt guilty. Guilty that in the midst of mourning, I held a secret she had no idea about. I knew my daughter-in-law would expect to inherit everything. I had watched her during the funeral, her subtle glances at family heirlooms and her whispered comments about what she would do with my son's possessions. She had no reason to suspect that I had been named the primary beneficiary of much more than I expected. The house, the cars, they weren't just material possessions. They were reminders of my son's love for me, his thoughtfulness, and his desire to provide for me even in death. Yet I hesitated. How could I tell her? Would it cause conflict? Or worse, would it make her resentful? So, I decided to keep it a secret, at least for now. Every time she came over, I maintained a warm smile, concealing the truth behind my quiet composure. I watched her interact with the house, the furniture, the small things my son had loved, knowing she had no idea of the inheritance quietly waiting for me. The secret weighed heavily, but it also gave me a sense of control amidst the grief, a fragile sense of power in a world turned upside down by loss. Weeks passed, and every visit from my daughter-in-law felt heavier than the last. She had moved into my son's old house temporarily, claiming she needed space to process her grief. I watched quietly as she explored rooms, arranging furniture, and talking about her plans for the future. She assumed she had full control over everything, but she didn't know the truth. Each morning, I drove past the garage, seeing the 2 cars parked neatly, and I felt a quiet thrill. My son had trusted me, and now I held the keys to his legacy. Yet I couldn't let her see it. Not yet. She often dropped subtle hints, testing boundaries. "I think I'll sell one of the cars," she said one day, pointing toward my son's old sedan. "It's just sitting here." I smiled, carefully hiding my emotions. "Perhaps you should wait," I replied softly, my voice calm, masking the tension inside. Her eyes narrowed, sensing that I was holding something back, but she couldn't figure out what. Dinner visits became even more awkward. She would casually mention how she expected to inherit certain things, laughing lightly as if I were an obstacle in her path. I let her talk, each word a reminder that she believed she was entitled, that the world revolved around her assumptions. At night, I would sit quietly in my son's study, reviewing the documents again. The house, the cars, the savings, everything he had left me. He had trusted me not just with his possessions, but with his memory. And I knew one day, the secret would have to be revealed. But for now, patience was my weapon, grief my shield, and the truth, my quiet power waiting to unfold. Months went by, and my daughter-in-law became increasingly comfortable in the house, arranging furniture, hanging pictures, and speaking casually about selling or giving away items she assumed belonged to her. Each word she spoke felt like a test, and I listened quietly, noting her entitlement. One afternoon, she found the keys to one of the cars in the kitchen drawer. She held them up, beaming. "Oh, I think these belong to me now, right?" she said, glancing at me with a half smile. I shook my head gently, keeping my tone light. Actually, those keys are mine, I said calmly, letting the words linger. A smile faltered. Mine? But I thought. I didn't finish her sentence. Instead, I let her stand there, uncertainty creeping into her expression. She'd assumed control over everything in the house, and suddenly a crack appeared in her confidence. Her visits became more cautious. She started asking questions, trying to probe without being obvious. Did he really leave you that house? Or, I didn't know you'd be involved with the cars. I only nodded gently, allowing her to piece things together slowly. The tension grew, each moment thick with unspoken truths. I wanted her to understand that my son had left me more than she realized, that his love and trust extended to me alone. At night, I would sit in the living room, thinking of my son and his intentions. This wasn't about revenge. It was about honoring his wishes, protecting what he had entrusted to me, and letting his legacy be respected. The revelation was coming, but it would not be rushed. Patience was my strength, and the moment she finally realized the truth would be unforgettable for both of us. It was a quiet Saturday afternoon when the moment finally arrived. My daughter-in-law had been reorganizing the garage, humming lightly as she moved boxes around. I watched from the doorway calm, letting her feel secure in her assumptions. She turned suddenly, holding one of the car keys. "I can't believe you've been keeping this from me," she said, a hint of frustration in her voice. "It's just, I thought this was all mine now." I stepped forward slowly, my voice steady. "Actually, it isn't. These cars, the house, and even the savings. My son left them to me." Her eyes widened, disbelief overtaking her features. "What? No, that's not possible. He would never—" I let her words hang in the air. There was no anger in my tone, only quiet certainty. "It's true. He trusted me to handle these things. He made it very clear in his will." For a long moment, she stood frozen, speechless. Her confidence, once so assured, had evaporated completely. She had assumed entitlement, but reality had struck like lightning. The inheritance was mine, just as my son had intended. I could see her mind racing, trying to process the betrayal she felt. Not from me, but from her own assumptions. I offered no argument, no apology. This wasn't about confrontation. It was about honoring my son's wishes. As she sank into a chair, overwhelmed and quiet, I realized the power of patience. Months of careful observation and restraint had brought the truth to light without bitterness or haste. The legacy my son had entrusted to me was now secure, and the lesson for her had begun to settle deeply. It was a delicate balance of grief, love, and justice, and it was finally unfolding exactly as it should. The days that followed were quiet but tense. My daughter-in-law avoided the topic of the house, the cars, and the savings, but her demeanor had changed. The confidence she had once carried like a shield was gone, replaced by caution and a sense of humility. I continued to live in the house, caring for the belongings my son had left behind. Every room reminded me of him, and every key, every document, was a symbol of his trust. I treated them with respect, not as possessions, but as a connection to the son I had lost. Occasionally, she would ask a question or make a comment, testing the waters, but I remained calm. "It's as he wanted," I would say gently, letting the weight of the truth settle without confrontation. Slowly, she began to understand that this wasn't about wealth or control. It was about honoring my son's wishes and memory. The house, the cars, and the savings became more than just an inheritance. They became a reminder that love and respect extend beyond death. My son had ensured I would be taken care of, and I had the strength to protect what was his, in accordance with his intentions. Months later, when she finally spoke openly, she admitted her misunderstanding. There was no resentment, only a newfound awareness of the care and trust my son had placed in me. It was a quiet reconciliation, grounded not in words, but in respect. I often thought back to that first day, holding the documents in trembling hands. What could have been a source of conflict became a lesson in patience, dignity, and the power of honoring a loved one's legacy. My son had left me more than possessions. He had left me the knowledge that doing what is right often requires silence, strength, and faith in the path he had chosen. And in that, I found peace. Thank you so much for watching this story till the end. I hope you enjoyed it and maybe even learned something from it. If you'd like to hear more stories like this, full of life lessons, drama, and emotions, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you'll never miss an update. Your support means the world, and it helps me keep bringing you more inspiring and unforgettable stories. Stay tuned because more amazing stories are on the way.